What is up, everybody? If you like the content I put up, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and leave me a comment below letting me know what you think of today's video. What is up, everybody? Starscream here, and today we're going to be doing a little bit different of a type of video. Today we're going to be talking about Igorok, the, in my opinion, worst legendary hero in the game. This video is going to be completely ad-libbed and off the cuff. I don't have anything really prepped for this per se. It's mostly just going to be me giving my personal opinion on why Igorok is absolutely terrible, but also I'm going to give some ways that perhaps he can be improved upon and different ways that, you know, in the future, hopefully the developers could do something to him to bring him back to his glory days. So the reason I want to do this video is I have been playing this game since 2015. So I've been around since the days when Igorok used to be like this insane powerhouse, like where you'd be in PvP and you'd see him on a defense and you'd be like, oh crap, I have to go up against friggin' Igorok. It's like a 50-50 chance that you were just going to get wiped out unless you were like totally stacked or like had your own Igorok. Which, like, at the time, it was a little bit hard to get him and a little bit hard to star him up. So he was like the big bad wolf of PvP back in the day. And look, I understand that like things change, metas change, at the time there was, 20 heroes and now there's 100, right? So, I mean, I get that not every hero can be, the dominating hero forever and ever. But that said, Igorok and basically Grognog as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. They're both like noticeably way worse than pretty much all the other legendary heroes by a large margin. And it's sad for me to see, such an awesome hero and such a hero that's been, around in DB for so long and hero that like has so much potential just be so completely useless when probably a few minor changes could make him at least somewhat more viable. So first, I think what we should just do really quick is let's just go through his stats and we'll just take a look at why he's just so dilapidated, right? And look into what we could do to make him a little bit better here. So first, let's just look at his traits really fast. Okay, has insulated monsters. So obviously he's a monster, right? So they wanted to do this whole thing where they make these families and families have certain synergies, sorta. And the family that they created when they came out, I think with Marrow, is Marrow or whatever. I think that's when they created the monster class. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly, but there wasn't always a monster class for those of you that haven't played for 5 years. That was something new. Igorok didn't used to be. I think he used to be, I forget, either a construct or maybe he was just a tank. I can't really remember. But when they made him a monster, they did all these like little monster trait things. So like insulated monsters, allied monsters gain insulated woolies immune to freeze, chill, and frostbite. So the idea was if you've got Igorok in your team, then all the rest of your monsters are now immune to freeze just like he is, which is great in theory, but there's only 8 other monsters and all of them are terrible. And to my knowledge, or as much as I can remember, I think he's the only legendary one. So he doesn't really have like a whole lot to work with here. So yeah, they're immune to freeze, chill, and frostbite, but who cares? Nobody's using monsters, and freeze is the only thing out of chill and freeze and frostbite that anybody actually uses. Chill and frostbite are both basically unused and almost completely ridiculous to even have. Like, they might as well just not have that immunity because nobody's using those debuffs anyway. So for the most part, this is kind of like this does nothing for anybody. If you want to use Igorok with a team that's not monsters, well, he's not going to help you much, right? With this. He's armored, which, cool, that's just a normal type thing. Monstrous presence. Monsters take reduced damage from debuffed characters. Monsters can't be retaliated against. Okay, cool. Again, very monster specific, and Monster is a family that kind of sucks. And not only is it really specific like that, because there's a few other creatures or heroes, that give resistances and stuff like that, and stat boosts and stuff specifically to their families, which is not necessarily inherently bad. The problem is, not only is it extremely specific as far as family goes, but also it's only from other debuffed characters. I should say heroes, I feel, but it's only from debuffed heroes. So not only is it only for his specific family, but it's also only from characters that are debuffed. So when you've got, defense teams that are running 12 foresights on them, and they're like not really getting all that debuffed very often, then again, this is not really going to help you much. And monsters can't be retaliated against. That's probably the only part of it that actually makes sense, that's actually decent to have. Again, some other people have a very specific, like, you know, beasts can't be retaliated against or what have you, but that part's not inherently bad either. But that first part is just essentially like it should either be, well, we'll get into that later. So it's just not that great. A natural fear, immune to fear and chance to fear beasts on attack. Okay, so yeah, he's immune to fear. Great, he's a monster, so that makes sense. I get that whole thing. And chance to fear beasts on attack. I get that when monsters came out, when monsters were first introduced, beasts were basically the meta. Everybody was using beasts. Everybody was using Solaris. Everybody was using, at that time, people were using Grognog and like Leo, and like, so people were actually using beasts at that time. So I guess it made sense that they made this a natural fear thing to kind of counter beasts. But the problem with making this so specific like this is that as soon as beasts fell out of meta, then this became useless. Like, it's like it's a useless trait for him to have. It's way too specific. He's immune to fear, but almost nothing fears right now. Very few heroes are using anything that fear. Even heroes that like are good don't really have fear. Like there's only like 3 heroes I think that even cause fear. So again, this is like very kind of like, who cares, right? And last but not least, epic shatter team. So when he got his epic, they created this like shatter feature that made it so that creatures or heroes that were frozen took more damage. So like the idea was, okay, if you got Igorok and Ice Bloom on a team, then you can get them frozen, and then somebody like Ice Pig will do more damage and stuff, which again is cool and all, and it worked for a little bit. I even made a video like 1,000 years ago on a shatter team. The problem is, again, he has boosted water ally, but it's only against frozen targets, and now everybody's running, you know, tons of foresights and stuff, and nobody's using heroes that freeze anymore. Nobody uses Igorok because he's bad, so nobody uses Ice Bloom because she's not good right now. So this is essentially useless. I'm trying to look at the list of heroes right now and look at people that actually freeze, and like, you've got Miko, you've got Ice Bloom, you've got Igorok, obviously, and like Selwyn, I guess. And I'm looking. I can't remember. No, I don't think he freezes people. Nope. I can't remember if Gortusk can freeze, but either way, again, it's like it just doesn't help like at all. So again, it might as well just be non-existent like at the moment, right? This wouldn't necessarily be bad if people were using Igorok and he was better. So I don't think that it's like, again, inherently bad. It's just kind of useless with Igorok in his current state. So after that, let's look at his statistics here, his stats, right? I don't have any runes on him so that we could look at his base stats. He's looking at 2,800 attack, 4,800 defense, yada yada. So what's really interesting about Igorok is that he's meant to be like, he has this very offensive like feel, right? He's got this offensive ability set, his move set, aside from that taunt, which we'll get to. But his stats are really kind of like lopsided, right? His stats are like, it's like he's meant to, I know it says tank up here, right? And I get that. But in my mind, Igorok was always like this massive, like behemoth damage dealer, more so than a tank that's going to grab aggro and like have a taunt up like a Furnace or like a Grondor or something. Like, he's always in my mind been like this guy who's like gonna mess up your team if you're running up against him, right? So the problem with the way his stats are set up is that like even if he had amazing abilities, and even if you threw fat runes on him, like, he doesn't have the stats set up to really be any type of offensive threat. So he has, when we get to his abilities, you'll see he has offensive abilities with a taunt, but then his stats don't back up that moveset. So he doesn't fit anywhere really. He doesn't fit as being tanky enough to really like soak up a ton of damage and be like your main like actual aggro grabbing tank. But he also doesn't have anywhere near enough attack power to be able to like wipe out teams like he used to. Now back in the day when there were no runes, it was okay for him to have a really high defense and then like have a decently high attack, but not necessarily need to have the highest attack in the game. Because again, he was pretty much freezing everybody. You couldn't avoid his freeze really because there were no such thing as, you know, foresight runes or evasion runes, right? So you were always getting frozen. His main thing wasn't like that he was going to necessarily kill you with his first hit, but he was going to freeze your entire team, and then you were just going to get wiped out because you were just frozen and stuck, right? Now that doesn't really work that way. So he either needs to be able to do a lot of damage and take people out, or like he needs to have some other utility, right? So this low attack with high defense and then his offensive build just doesn't like make any sense whatsoever for you to be able to use him. You could stack him with all attack runes and he's still going to be too weak to make any sense. Like there's always going to be a way better option than him because he doesn't do anything better than anybody else. Like right now he's at best, in my eyes, at best he's like a silver or gold hero, which would be insulting for, you know, the original legendary hero, you know. So let's look at his abilities really quick. He's got Snowy Smash, which is fine. Like his epic attack has a chance to deal some damage, splash damage. Adds freezing skin only to water allies again. So you better hope that you have, you know, a water team. If freeze or frostbitten, let's see here, has a chance to chill, frostbite if chilled, or freeze if frostbitten. Like way too specific and not good enough to do anything because nobody cares about chill or frostbite. Nobody does. Either make those better debuffs or just get rid of it altogether and just focus on freeze. Like do a freeze where he does like an intense freeze and does extra damage or something like that. I don't know. Polar pounding just does damage and a chance to freeze. Great. We've got other heroes that do the same thing but are better. So useless. His one thing that made him really good is now completely useless. Frostbite taunt. Cool. He gets the taunt. And he's not that great of a tank. So he doesn't have features like, you know, Furnace being able to, you know, only take 20% of his health away per hit and stuff. Like he's just not a good tank. So you have this tank ability here while still trying to be an offensive hero, and it just makes no sense for his moveset. But aside from that, it buffs his defense a further 65% and has a chance to apply Frostbite to an attacker, which again, Frostbite, who cares, right? And last but not least, Arctic Assault. Melee water attack on targeted 2 random enemies for not a ton of damage and 1.5 times damage if the enemy is chilled or frozen. So again, another essentially just 3 melee attack with no extra special features other than a little bit of a damage boost if they're chilled or frozen. He has extremely low attack stats, so that 1.5 times damage is going to be still pretty lackluster, and I urge you to try this out. Again, most of this stuff is for, you got to remember, most of my stuff is all for high level PvP that I'm referring to, right? So if you're level 50 or 60 or whatever, and you're like looking at this video like, what are you talking about? I'm owning people with Igorok. The video is not for you, right? This video is overall in general, when people start maxing out heroes and you're really like in the upper echelon of like level 80 PvP and stuff, you'll never see Igorok anywhere. Like anywhere. I'm talking like even the defenses that I run into in PvP that are obviously players that haven't played for like a year and a half, or players that are obviously free to play and stuff, nobody's running. I say that I would see in PvP, I probably see Abigail more than I see Igorok. Like I probably see Jabber. I probably see Jabber and Gibber on defense more than I've seen Igorok on defense, which is ridiculous, right? Like it's insane to me that nobody uses this hero that used to be like a top hero. His epic is fine, but again, the stats his epic helps don't help him as a hero. He just gets a boost to defense, a little bit of skill, which skill I guess affects whether or not somebody gets frozen, so cool, and then crit chance, which is fine, right? But aside from that, he only gets this epic shatter team, which only helps, you know, his water heroes, which, I mean, nobody's going to be running. Like, how many water heroes are there? It looks like maybe like 10 or so. And none of them are really all that meta. You've got Nivius, Miko, and that's about it. Or Valken, I guess, as far as freezing heroes. Oh, Valken is another one that basically does, you know, his Igorok's main thing a 1,000 times better, right? So let's go back to this stuff and look at, you know, how things could potentially be better for Igorok. How could we take this sad excuse of a hero and make him somewhat better? First of all, let's look at his traits, right? I think he needs extra traits for you know, just I don't know what they are exactly. I think we should brainstorm some traits, and if you have any ideas for cool traits that Igorok should have, throw them down in the comments for me. But like insulated monsters, all allied monsters gain insulated woolies, which is fine. I can't think of a way to make this better per se. Perhaps give them some type of defense buff for like damage reduction, like gives them insulated woolly, which I assume is like, you know, this fur, right? So maybe make it so that they take, you know, 10% less damage or something, you know, when they're on a team with Igorok, in addition to having the immunity to being frozen and stuff like that, right? Monsters presence. Monsters take reduced damage from debuffed characters. Just make it so that they take reduced damage, like, or extra, like if they're debuffed now, instead of the 10% that we just talked about, now they, you know, have a 20 or 30% damage reduction from creatures that are debuffed. You know what I mean? Monsters can't be retaliated against. Cool, keep that. That's good. And maybe add to it that, you know, monsters can't be retaliated against, and also monsters have a chance to retaliate against creatures that attack other monsters. So like if you're on a team with Igorok, he's the legendary monster, right? So if they're on a team with him and a monster gets attacked, or if Igorok gets attacked, for example, then other monsters have the, you know, ability to do like follow-up attacks or whatever. Again, this is completely ad-libbed. I have none of this prepped, so I'm just kind of like off the top of my head saying stuff, right? But it would make sense because like in PvE, in campaign, you'll notice that there are certain enemies, certain bosses that, like, if you attack them, their little minions will do follow-up attacks, like I think they're literally called retaliation or revenge attacks. I think they're called revenge attacks. Or like if somebody scores a critical hit versus Igorok, then they have a chance to do other monsters have a chance to do like a follow-up attack or something to that degree, right? I think that would add a lot more usefulness to the monster team as a whole. A natural fear, immune to fear and chance to fear beasts on attack. Okay. In my opinion, all monsters should be immune to fear. Like, their whole shtick as monsters is that they're supposed to instill fear on other creatures, right? So all of them should just be blanket immune to fear. Additionally, I think that maybe if Igorok is on a team with monsters, then they should have a chance to fear all heroes or creatures or whatever on any attack. They should have like a 20% chance to cause fear on any attack that hits somebody. Again, they're monsters, so they shouldn't necessarily only be affecting beasts. So like, again, beasts were meta when they were doing all these revamps and changes to Igorok at the time, but like, it's basically useless right now, and it would totally fit his character that this big giant monster, ice monster thing would instill fear on any hero, right? And again, it's not going to be anything where it's overpowered or anything, because you've got foresights running around and you've got, you know, null magic running around. You've got like all kinds of stuff that are going to help, you know, against that. So all it's going to do is make him just a little bit more viable and usable. So like if Igorok's on the team, all monsters have the chance to do a fear on any enemy they hit. I think that would be phenomenal, and it would make fear have kind of a comeback, because right now fear isn't hardly used by anybody. And if you combine that with being able to do retaliation attacks, you know, anytime that one of your monsters gets attacked, if an allied monster does retaliation, now they have the opportunity to fear any other creature. Now you have scenarios where you might be fearing their whole team, And even if they're hitting you with somebody like Dagon or whatever, Dagon's doing an AoE attack against all your monsters. Well, now your monsters are like, screw you, Dagon. They all do follow-up attacks, and now you're fearing their whole team, and now their team is a lot more, you know, susceptible to damage, right? So I feel like that would help a lot, and it would totally fit the monster kind of like idea and mythos and so on. Shatter Team, I think that Shatter Team you could probably keep the same. I think you should be a little bit more clear when it says boosts water ally damage versus frozen targets. You should give an amount. Either, you know, is it 2 times damage? Is it 3 times damage? Like, let us know what it is. And I would say boost it up. Right now, water heroes aren't overpowered. Falcons is probably the strongest water hero. Him and Miko right now are probably the 2 strongest water heroes, and they're not, in my opinion, by any means overpowered. Falcon is very strong, but he's supposed to be. He's a legendary, right? So now if Shatter Team, like now if Igorok is a little bit better, now you might want to have him on a team with Falcon, because then it makes sense to have those 2 powerhouses together, right? It just opens up a lot more options. I don't think, again, this Shatter Team thing is inherently bad. Just give us a little bit more details and make Igorok better so that it matters about having Shatter Team. Now, onto his stats. I honestly, personally think that if you just swap his attack and defense stats, he'll be a lot better. You'll make him a melee, not melee, but an attack-focused tank that can soak up a little bit of damage and do a lot of damage. I think if his attack stat was 4,800 and his defense was like 3k here, obviously, you know, the base is a little bit different because it depends on your rarity and the stars that you have. But again, I'm just using the base stats that I have here based on him being 6-star and level 80. But like, I honestly think that would like make him a lot more viable. We could then throw a couple evasion runes on him, some foresights, and then now have an actual team with him where he might not get wiped out immediately because we have enough damage mitigation to like keep him alive. And then now, once I get to attack with him, I know that I'm going to thrash, right? Give him, I don't know that you need to make him silence immune because we're trying to get away from everybody being silence immune, right? But, you know, we as the player, we could help with that by putting foresights and stuff on him. But right now, there's no reason to do any of that, right? With his abilities, I think Polar Pounding needs to have more damage. I think that it needs to have the ability to do something else, like do something called like Deep Freeze or something where, yeah, they're frozen just like anybody else can freeze, like Selwyn or what's his name, or Valken, right? But like have it so that maybe like it does like not necessarily chaos damage, but like deep freeze damage, where anytime that they're frozen from Polar Pounding, they are gonna take, you know, 30% of their health, not like 30% of their health, but like, let's say like 10-20% of their health as damage each turn that they're frozen. That would make it so that if you have Igorok, you polar pound them. Or you use Polar Pounding, they're frozen, and then if frozen can stack from other heroes, like if Valken does his attack that freezes, and if Ice Bloom does their attacks, and it's like stacking, like let's say you could have 5 stacks of frozen and be totally locked out, and each turn they're getting damage over time like 20-30%, like then now Polar Pounding is unique, not just the fact that it freezes, but now it's also doing overtime damage that can't be mitigated, let's say just like chaos damage or something similar to that. Again, I think that would make him so much better. That'd make him like actually viable, and even if he's not like necessarily meta per se, at least people will like look and try and figure stuff out with him, right? Next, I think you should get rid of this taunt. I think the taunt is useless. Do something different here. Like maybe I don't know really. Instead of a taunt, maybe do something where it's like a self buff that buffs either water or other monster allies or something to that degree. Give him like ice armor or something where, you know, all damage to him is like halved, and, you know, any attacks against him have a chance to apply deep freeze on an enemy, right? Like let's say this is like now ice armor, right? He puts it on, he takes half damage, and then now anybody that hits him has a chance to become frozen and take that deep freeze damage like we just talked about in Polar Pounding. Like that would be sick. That would be a self buff that would actually like make sense. That would be really cool and fit his character mythos, right? Then Arctic Assault is fine, I guess, if you just want to have like a it's like a, I don't know, like just a brawler type move for him. But again, I would do something, maybe have it be armor piercing, ignore shields or something that to that degree, or like, I don't know, or make it do more damage or something. This isn't, again, like an inherently bad move, but it's also not bad because it's just basic. Like, there's not really a lot to it here. And then last but not least, let's talk about his epic attack. I don't know that you need to do much to his epic. I think that once you give him more attack stats, and once you have all that other trait stuff, like maybe the opportunity to freeze, and not freeze, but like fear and stuff like that, then all of a sudden that big AoE attack, now it makes sense, and now like it's cool. So I don't think that a lot would need to be changed there. Again, a lot of what we talked about here had to do with the fact that the monster team kind of sucks, right? So definitely I would recommend going through and looking at the monster team, right? So what I did is I actually pulled up the wiki here so that we could look, right? These are all 100 of the heroes right now. So if we look at it here, we can say, okay, family, monster. Okay, so these are the monsters we've got. If you take a look at my tier list, these are all pretty bad heroes. Boros is cool, yeah, he's great and all, but he doesn't do much, and his extra traits don't really help the team like that much. They're okay, but like it's just not that awesome, right? Iris is probably the best out of the group, and she's too hard to make good. Her what's it called? Her trait that like makes it so that like when she has 5 buffs on her, she's stronger or whatever. Like nobody uses it because it's such a pain to get enough runes on her to give her the 5 right off the bat. And if you don't have it right off the bat, it's useless because matches are too fast for her to be able to get it later. So it's called Hive Mind. That's what it's called. So like to be able to get her Hive Mind without doing it right off the bat makes her basically useless, which is why nobody uses her, right? And for those of you that are wondering why I feel like Igorok is the worst out of all the legendaries, let's look at it really quick, right? These are all the legendary heroes. Out of all of these legendary heroes, by far the worst are going to be Grog and Falcon and Igorok. The rest of these guys are halfway decent. I'd say there could be a case to be made that Drac is worse, but I would say personally, I don't think Drac is worse than Igorok. I think Drac has a lot more going for him. I think his moveset and stuff is better. It fits him better. It actually makes sense for what he's supposed to be. I think that Barbarians definitely need some type of love or some type of rework to some degree. But I do think that overall Drac is a little bit better than Igorok. And I do think that Grognog is also better than Igorok, but probably only because he has beasts which are a better family. So I think realistically Grognog is also pretty bad, but Grognog has 2 things that are going for him that Igorok doesn't. Grognog is balanced in stats, so his attack and defense are almost exactly the same, and his moveset like is cohesive. His moveset, he has 3 moves that all do damage, not a ton of damage, but they all do damage plus some type of extra effect, right? He's not trying to be a tank. He's not trying to be an ultra damage dealer with no high attack stat. He's always been kind of like a middle of the line hero that's meant to be kind of like balanced, right? I do think as a legendary hero, he needs some love and needs to be able to do extra stuff, but that's for a different video. I don't feel like getting into how to make Grognog better on this video. And I think Drac, we could do another video like this. But I did this video kind of as a test. Those of you that watch my streams can know that I can be very outspoken and very opinionated on things that have to do with Dungeon Boss and the heroes. I was very opinionated on Dagon before the rework. I was very opinionated back in the day on Arya. I wanted her to be a lot better, and I'm talking like 2 years ago. And they did, and they fixed a lot of those. So I do feel like, this is something that they could work on and they could do. and I'm going to urge them to watch this video. But I also wanted to see how you guys like this video, because I didn't tell anybody I was going to make this video. So you guys let me know if you like this, if you think that I should do more videos like this. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. We don't have to have the exact same opinion, right? Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You can think what you want to think, and I can think what I want to think, right? But I will say that this video is not meant to be just, you know, a Debbie Downer. This is like, I genuinely think Igorok could be a good hero again, and I genuinely want him to be a good hero again. So let's see if we can somehow encourage that to happen. If you haven't been watching, please check out my streams. I do leave them as video replays after I stream, but also turn on those notifications so that you can know anytime I go live. I've been streaming on YouTube instead of Twitch, only because all of you guys are pretty much on YouTube, and I was having kind of a little bit of trouble getting people to migrate over to Twitch, and I'm not doing it for the money, so I'd much rather, you know, do it on a platform that you guys are all going to see me. But just make sure that you turn on notifications on YouTube. There's that little bell down somewhere next to the subscribe button. There's a bell button. If you click on that, it'll ask you if you want to receive notifications, and typically that's just going to tell you when I'm going live. So it's not going to be something that's spamming you all the time. It's just going to say, hey, you know, Starscream's going live now, and I go live maybe 3 or 4 times a week, right? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will talk to you guys soon.